Okay, so I need to tell you about the time my wife absolutely destroyed a phone company with the most brilliant act of malicious compliance I've ever witnessed. And trust me, I thought I was pretty good at this stuff, but she showed me what true mastery looks like. This happened about 20 years ago, back when I was running my IT support company. At the time, I was using this carrier called Nextel. Maybe some of you remember them. They had this amazing push-to-talk feature that basically turned your phone into a walkie-talkie, which was absolutely perfect for my line of work. I could instantly communicate with my team without making actual calls. But here's the thing about Nextel. Their customer service was an absolute nightmare. Every single time I needed to contact them about anything, and I mean anything at all, I'd be sitting on hold for at least 30 to 40 minutes. Minimum. It was infuriating. Eventually, I decided to switch to a cheaper carrier. Now, this is important to understand. Back in those days, you couldn't port your number like you can today. If you switched carriers, you had to get a completely new phone number. So I came up with what I thought was a clever solution. I canceled all the phones on my family plan except for my main one, which I downgraded to this bare-bones emergency plan that cost about $10 a month. I left that old phone plugged into a charger on a shelf right next to my desk in my office. I set up the voicemail to tell people my new number, and that was that. The phone just sat there, and I could glance over to see if anyone called. But here's where it gets interesting. This phone would make these little sounds whenever it lost connection to the cellular network, and then different sounds when it reconnected. And let me tell you, it was constantly connecting and disconnecting. I'd estimate that phone only stayed connected maybe 50% of the time. The service in my office was absolutely terrible. After about 6 months of this, I figured enough time had passed, and I decided to finally cancel the thing completely. So I called customer service, waited the usual 30 to 40 minutes on hold, because of course I did, and finally explained everything to the representative. I told them about the constant network drops, mentioned I'd already switched carriers, the whole story. They verified the service problems on my account and canceled everything. No contract, no problem, done deal. About a week later, my final bill arrived. It was around $10, exactly what I expected for that month's emergency plan. I hadn't made any calls, so it was just the base fee. I paid it immediately and felt this huge sense of relief. Finally, I was done with Nextel forever, or so I thought. The next month, I opened my mailbox and found another bill from Nextel. I opened it up, expecting maybe some small adjustment or fee I'd forgotten about. The amount? For cents. I'm not joking, for pennies. At first, I figured it had to be some kind of clerical error. Like, surely they're not going to chase me down for 4 cents, right? They'll just write it off. But nope. The next month, another bill for 4 cents. And the month after that. And the month after that. And here's the part that really got me. I checked the postmark on the envelope. The postage alone was costing them 40 cents. They were spending literally 10 times the amount of the actual bill just to mail it to me, month after month after month. Now, I could have just paid the 4 cents, obviously. But think about it, I'd have to write a check for 4 cents, which is ridiculous, or I'd have to find an envelope, buy a stamp, and mail it back. I'd be spending way more on the stamp than the actual bill. It was completely absurd. This went on for 6 months. 6 months of these idiotic bills arriving in my mailbox. Finally, I'd had enough. I decided it was time for some malicious compliance. My plan was simple but satisfying. I would invest those 40 minutes on hold, call Nextel one last time, and pay them their precious 4 cents with my credit card. See, I knew that credit card processing fees would cost them way more than 4 cents, so they'd actually lose money on the transaction. Felt like the perfect revenge. I was so proud of myself. I told my wife about my brilliant plan, expecting her to be impressed with my cleverness. I explained the whole thing, the waiting on hold, the credit card payment, how it would cost them money instead of making them money. And that's when my wife, the true queen of malicious compliance, casually suggested something that blew my mind completely. She said, "Why don't you ask if you can make payments on the 4 cents? Like, split it into 2 payments on your credit card." I just stared at her. Do you understand the genius of this? Not only would they lose money on the credit card fees for 1 transaction, they'd lose money on 2 transactions, for a total of 4 cents. I was in the presence of malicious compliance royalty, so I called. Waited on hold for 40 to 45 minutes, working in my office while the hold music droned on. Finally, a representative picked up. She sounded like one of those airport check-in agents who type like they're writing a novel. I could hear this constant clickety-clack of her keyboard in the background. She was typing away as I started explaining my situation. I told her I'd canceled my service but kept receiving this final bill, and I wanted to take care of the outstanding balance. Still typing, she said she'd pull up my account. Then I dropped the bomb. I explained that I'd like to set up a payment plan where I could pay half of the balance on my credit card today and pay the remaining half the following month. She was agreeing with me, still typing away, saying, yes sir, I can help you with that, when suddenly complete silence. The typing stopped. Sir? She said. Yes, I replied, trying to keep my voice neutral. Are you aware of the balance amount? Yes, I am. For cents? Yes, I said calmly. I figured you guys really wanted that 4 cents, since you've been spending all this postage to send me bills every single month. So I'm just calling to take care of it. There was this brief silence on the other end. Then I heard the clickety-clack of her keyboard starting up again. She told me I wouldn't have to worry about the balance anymore because she was writing it off completely. I actually insisted on giving her my credit card for the first half of the payment. I was committed to the bit, but she firmly shut that down and assured me I'd never receive another bill. And you know what? I never did. My wife's suggestion turned what would have been a simple prank into an absolute masterpiece of malicious compliance. I thought I was good at this stuff, but she's on a completely different level. The best part? You really have to be dedicated to malicious compliance to wait on hold for 40 minutes just to mess with a company over 4 cents. But honestly, totally worth it for the story alone. My wife and I still laugh about this 20 years later,